Hello everyone. I just want to say a massive thank you to all who dialed in for this month's Shift Community Seminar. It was the first of 2023 and a really great start to the year. We speak to Bruce, who's the chairman and founder of Left-Handed Giant, and he shares his inspiring story of building one of Bristol's most exciting brands. He also speaks to us about community investment and how they use this to keep Left-Handed Giant's employees and customers at the very heart of everything they do. Enjoy.
From us at Future Shift, Happy New Year. We've had lots of exciting things brewing in Future Shift HQ. We've got a load of really exciting workshops that are sort of complementary to the B Corp journey in the pipeline, which we're really excited to bring out during the course of the year to support B Corp clients, but also open up a new service called Culture Shift to our clients and people in the UK sustainability scene. I'll hand it over to Bruce, and if you could just give us a little introduction to you, to Left-Handed Giant as a brand, and we'll get into some questions.
So Left-Handed Giant started from a position of really no money at all. We weren't a well-funded startup, and the beginning of it was very much a case of trying to scrap and scrape and pull the thing together from really nothing at all. And the cash flow we generated from small bar, obviously, so there's money coming in across the bar there. But really, breweries are generally speaking very well funded. Certainly, successful breweries are generally speaking very, very well funded businesses. And for example, the first brewery we built in St Philip's cost about £250,000 to fit out, put together, and begin brewing. That was in 2017. There was no way that we could have afforded to put that kind of investment into a brewery in 2015 when we first started brewing, without, I guess, taking a number of different avenues. Mostly would have been revolving around about selling quite a large proportion of our business to someone else who then would have had the ability to really influence the decisions that we were making with regards to the ethics, the morality of how we operated our business. And I, from day one, quite heavily influenced from the experience I had previous to this business, have been very, very, very keen all the way through to ensure that it is the founders that maintain the majority ownership through until we get to employee ownership trust, which we can talk about a bit later. So in 2017, when we felt that we'd got to a place where the demand was consistent enough that we could build a brewery and have that brewing working at full capacity on day one, we went ahead. I think at that time we raised about 120 or 30,000 pounds via investment. We gave away about maybe 7% of our company at that point. So a relatively small proportion, but that was the first time we sold any shares in the company. And that was a great success. We raised a lot of money. It was all family and friends, people that were close to us. Again, no one that was going to have the desire or ability to influence how we went about running the company. And it was at that time, actually, only about 2 or 3 months after we built that first brewery in 2017, that the building at Findles became available. So it was a really quick thing from sort of building this brewery, beginning our journey as people that were actually working within our own facility, making our own beer rather than doing it in other people's facilities. And this brewery became available, the building became available at Findles. But we just raised 120, 30,000 pounds in investment for that. To give that some context, the project at Findles ended up costing us just over £3 million. And we at that time were a business with a turnover of just under £1 million, profit margins of fairly well zero. So it was, the project, the journey, excuse me, to go from where we were at as a business to a business that was going to be able to raise the funds required to buy and then fit out the building down at Findles Reach was quite a stretch and required quite a lot of imagination to imagine that we could take that leap. But on the other hand, I knew that someone was going to take that building on. The other people in the conversation were large multinationals, and I felt passionately that that building should be occupied by a small independent Bristol business, and it should be someone from Bristol that was occupying such a landmark building in the centre of Bristol. So despite us having no ability to pay for it, we put an offer in on it, and then tried to figure out the journey that would allow us to go from putting that offer in to be able to afford it. Now that journey essentially began with crowdfunding, because we crowdfunded in the end about £1.3 million in exchange for about 12% of our company. Again, super important, because we approached that from a Bristol community perspective. Really tried to approach people directly within Bristol. We ended up raising about 80% of the money from BS postcodes. So the majority of people that put money into that were from the locality, and I think that was largely because of the way in which we approached it, doing Q&As in pubs round about the city. Calling people into our facilities, offering them a beer, talking to them about it, really approaching it from like a locality and a connection to people perspective, rather than just sending it out to the wide world and hoping that random investors would just chuck money into it in exchange for a return. And there was a few people like that, I'm sure, but the majority, as I said, were from the BS postcode. So we gave away 13% of our company thereabouts, which again allowed us to bring in a huge chunk of money, but again maintain majority ownership with the founders, the people who have the ethics, morality of the company at their hearts. So even now, that's all the company we've given away. We are still the majority owners, and we have the ability to make decisions that are not necessarily profit driven. We can look at the company from our social environmental impact. We can make decisions that we think are for the best of the company, for the environment, for our employees, for our team, for ourselves, and not really be pressurized by large cynical investors, which was the plan. It remains the plan as we transfer through our journey now, B Corp, net zero, and ultimately employee ownership trust, with the majority of the company being owned and operated by the employees.
Mm-hmm. It's such an inspiring story for us, and it really shows how you can embrace an alternative kind of way of doing things, focusing on community, especially the Bristol community, as many of us know, is pretty tight knit, and it must have also been a bit of a leap of faith. It's the unorthodox way of doing things. So I guess there were some kind of social risks or some ideas of risk around that. But as it was quite a leap of faith, has it changed the way that you do business now, starting with the brew pub in that community-oriented way?
The way in which you raise funds to grow your business, I think, has such an influence into how you are able to operate your company going into the future from that point. And obviously there's the common way is to take investment from institutional investors, whether that's private equity, banks, whatever. But when you do that, it puts so much pressure onto you from a growth profit margin and the way in which you operate your company on a day-to-day, year-to-year basis. And at that point, it ceases to be. You often cease to be able to place your ethics, your morality at the very forefront of what you do. But it definitely takes some bravery to take a different path, try and maintain majority ownership, to try and raise funds another way. But you look at the crowd fund, excuse me, and you look at the community that we brought into the company at that time. It was a challenge, it was a. I think people often look at that type of fundraising and look at it as an easy option. You know, from my perspective, it was far from it. You know, the way in which we raised funds for the brew pub was really super challenging, very difficult, hugely time consuming. But we now have 1,500 people who are investors and shareholders, but far more than that, they are supporters. You know, and when it came to the pandemic, for instance, those people really, really supported us through that. You know, in the online shop, they were willing to work really hard to try and get our beer and continue to put money through the business. So not only do you get investor shareholders, but you get people that really are supporters and advocates as well. So there's a whole other benefit behind it as well. And obviously they're huge supporters of the brew pub. Come down, drink there, and put money across the bar there as well.
Yeah, and it's an enormous confirmation of that your business has a sincere and positive community impact. The fact that many people would want to invest their money, not as people wanting to necessarily get a profit, but want to see your business prosper, and they're going to get value from the brew pub past money. They're going to get a space to go with their friends that's not run by a transnational corporation and is not going to lose all of its soul. So I think the value extends far past money. And I know a lot of people on this call are interested in B Corp. And I think something that we've spoken about going through the B Corp journey together over the last few months is that you're fantastic at community engagement because the business has had to engage the community because of your investment structure and how you've proceeded to do things. And could you talk us through a couple of the community engagement sort of practices that you do past the initial crowdfunding, things like your AGM, the running club, etc.?
Yeah. So those two examples, you know, the AGM is a yearly thing that we do where we invite all of our shareholders down to our brewery in St. Philip's. And we really try to be incredibly transparent as to how the company is performing. Financially, you know, the nuts and bolts of what we're doing, turnover, margins, where we're spending money, why we're spending it, where we're allocating cash to, and profits ultimately. But also just try to have a really nice opportunity to have a Q&A and talk through what our decision-making processes were with a lot of things that we do, what our plans are for the coming year and the years, and the decision-making process behind there, and really try to bring our shareholders into the journey and the thought processes to everything that we do. So it's not just a case of them feeling like they are a bystander in the process that's going on. Allow them to be part of the conversation and part of the journey. And I think people really enjoy it. You know, it's you know, beyond that, obviously the bar's open and they get to come down. We put a band on afterwards, and they get to have a nice day where they come down, have, you know, that business aspect of it, where we talk about what everything is, why it is, what we're doing. Then also just have a party afterwards. And the run clubs, you know, is I mean, it's turned into something that's huge. We had 150 people come down to it last week, although that was a particularly large one because it was bring a friend night. But generally speaking, you've got 100-ish people thereabouts come along to our run club evenings down to the brew pub on a Tuesday night. But for me, it's like I'm very conscious of the fact that we sell booze, and ultimately that can have a negative impact into people's health and life. And it's super important for me that at least we do some things that can, to an extent, balance out that negative impact that we have from an alcohol perspective. And the Run Club's a really nice example of that, where we just offer a free service run by one of our team. It's a really, really super inclusive environment where it doesn't matter how fast or slow you are, you'll be welcomed and looked after. They all stand on the bridge until the last person comes around across and clap them in. They do a lot of different events where they get taken out to various different places, to races, and get supported. Yeah, it's just a lovely environment to try and encourage people to come down, be healthy, and form a community with each other.
Really, really cool. And I haven't actually managed to go down to the running club, but I'm sure with 100 people, it's a good laugh. For somebody just starting their B Corp journey, you're a good chunk through it now. What's one piece of advice that you would have for them?
Oh, that's a good question. Allocate more time than you think you're going to need to it. Certainly for us, it took, if I had tried to undertake that journey, I think any time in the past I wouldn't have had the time for it. It definitely, from a time perspective, it took a lot of time. But also, you could be proactive with it. I think a lot of the stuff that we have had to do for it has been turning what was maybe verbal ideas that we had around the business, that we would make those decisions if given the opportunity to put into policy. I think it's not written down, doesn't exist, if that makes sense. So you can be proactive and go through the business and write policy for every write policy, file it correctly for everything you do, and the more policy you have written backing up the decisions that you make in the company, the more likely you are to cruise through. But yeah, I think that would be fair to say. There's probably a whole bunch of other things, but that's the summary of it, I think.
Great answer. And just a final one. And so I've never asked you, but thought would be interesting. What's your favourite left-handed giant beer?
Favorite beer? Oh God, so many. But honestly, the business. I think I said back at the start that I'm a bar guy from my background, from my career. I've operated and ran bars forever, and I think at the heart of Left-Handed Giant, well, we are a brewery. I think ultimately we're a bar company at the base of it. Like our passion. I think what sets us apart, allows us to find a place in the market, is not just the experience of the beer, but the experience of the beer within the venue, across the bar, the engagement with our team, the passion that they show, the education that they can give, the fact that when you go in there and you drink your beer, you're not just consuming a product, you're drinking a beer and having an experience right about it. So favourite beer, I would say something like Sky Above, standing in the brew pub, drinking it with the tank that it was made in, through the glass, and having that sense of like connection to the production facility that gives you. But that's as much about the beer as it is as much about the experience, if that makes sense. But yes, Sky Above, but with the context of all that round about it.
Good stuff. Well, thank you very much, Bruce. Really appreciate it.